I always tell my family that the only place outside of Pakistan where I actually feel comfortable at home, I'm not conscious of my surroundings, no one's staring at me, I'm completely at home, is China.
Please introduce yourself in turn. I think maybe Lady first.
I'm Nixie. I'm a previous former district councillor in Hong Kong. And I met my two dear friends a few years ago back in the Boao Forum. Here's Mustafa and Nirbhik.
So a little bit about me. I studied in Hobart and William Smith colleges in upstate New York. I also worked in the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Scholars as a research assistant to Ambassador Malia Lodhi, who was a former ambassador to the United Nations. And I joined the Pakistan-China Institute.
So I am Nirbhik, studied in the United States. I studied physics, and I was working on a few projects with NASA before I came back. And I have been involved in affiliated with Youth Federation Nepal. That's the youth wing of our the ruling party, CPNUML. And currently I hold the position of Deputy General Secretary and Chief of International Affairs Department.
So I just want to ask, what's your first impression of China for both of you?
The China model, Nixie, has proven that you do not have to be a neoliberal democracy in a university in the UK or in America when you study states and state systems and statecraft. What you're taught is that if you are a successful neoliberal democracy, only then you can succeed as a country. But socialism with Chinese characteristics and the Chinese model has proven to the world that, and China has given over 200 million people, lifted them out of poverty. It has been the most successful in battling the pandemic. Many developed first world countries have been crippled in their response, in their very weak response to the pandemic. So whether it is lifting out of poverty, whether it is response to COVID, or whether it is the rapid economic growth that we've seen since reform and opening up, I have seen in my visits to China that there is a legitimacy of the party and of the state.
I had a good impression of China since my early childhood. And my home was full of Chinese books translated in English or in Nepali. And even I had opportunity to read Chinese children's books, including the Monkey King. I had good impression of China from since early age. And the first time I visited China was in 2010. I visited Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou at that time. But since then, I have visited China many, many times. Every time I come there, I'm actually shocked by the development, the investments in the infrastructure, the level of management, the production force, the volume of the production force.
Please use 3 words to describe China, each of you.
Chinese people are very hardworking, very adapting. Chinese people can have gone to all parts of the world and adapted with all kinds of environments and performed well. And the third word that comes to mind is very resourceful and enterprising. The Chinese people are very creative, and they can take up very difficult projects, and they can find resources in very difficult areas also.
I think for Chinese people these days is energetic, welcoming, and friendly.
Disciplined, eclectic, miraculous.
I just found an investigation by a website. It's an online voting, and one of the questions was, what is the purpose of the US focus on attacking the Communist Party of China? And the result was very interesting that 96% of the voters voted for the options to sow the discord between the Chinese people and the Chinese Communist Party and undermines China's unity. So about these questions, what's your opinion? Do you think the Western countries or the foreign media's rumors have done anything to divide the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people?
I think my experience that I feel pretty angry. I'm a Chinese myself. There's a lot of media, especially in Hong Kong, which totally crazy media around doing a lot of fake news, fabricating news relating to China, amplifying some tiny incidents in China and making stories around it and spreading around in Hong Kong. So a lot of people haven't even traveled to China before, unfortunately, even though they are staying in Hong Kong. They've never traveled to China.
We've seen a lot of attacks by Western media to China, especially relating to Tibet and it's been happening for a long time, and they spread rumors, misinformations that how people are oppressed against their wills, they have no freedom and stuff like that. But as a neighboring country, as a bordering country, we know on the contrary that these rumors are not really the truth. You can see about how they termed the COVID virus. They first called it the Wuhan virus. Then even President Trump called it the Chinese virus. It's a shame that they use even this kind of global catastrophe or pandemic and to spread animosity against China around the world.
I think that under the Communist Party of China, the People's Republic of China has shown a lot of strategic restraint. For example, the South China Sea. China is the biggest player in the South China Sea, but it is the only country which has not built any new island or reef. All the other claimants in the South China Sea have built a new artificial infrastructure. And it has shown strategic restraint, rational behavior, reasonable behavior. So it can show that consistency. It can show that continuity of policies. So that's one very important point. Secondly, I think the disinformation campaign and playing the China card is a disservice to globalization. It's a disservice to international cooperation. In 1991, there was an article in the New York Times, Breaking China Apart. That was the name of the article. You can Google it, Breaking China Apart. And it talked about the Xinjiang card. At that time, this is 30 years ago, they were talking about the Xinjiang card at that time. Secondly, there is another article of the New York Times. It's called The State That Failed to Fail. And you know how they end that article? It's very funny. You guys would enjoy it. He says that we've been waiting for China to fail. And we are still waiting. I wrote in one of the articles for CGTN because Hawaii, mind you, was an indigenous island. It was taken over. The indigenous people were subjugated. There was a king, a royal family in Hawaii. Please read about it. They were subjugated. They were trampled upon. Okay. And they were eliminated and forcibly integrated. How would the United States react if China says that Hawaii, we support the independence of Hawaii? Other point I want to make is that the peaceful rise of China has been a contradiction in world politics, because traditionally the powers have been revisionist powers which have come up. Revisionist powers have not been status quo powers. China is a status quo power and it has not interfered in any other country. Whereas the West, their rise is directly correlated with regime change, with changing governments through manipulation. I'm talking evidence-based. Let's look at Iran in our neighborhood. Pakistan is developing country. We are in the third world. We are a very poor country. We have seen how proxy wars have been fought at the expense of Pakistan. And many other countries have seen this.
I think maybe it's because it's an ideological clash actually that the Western world and China are having right now, because Chinese Communist Party has protected the Chinese nation in the colonial times, unified all of China, and in the 21st century made a world power. It has, like Mustafa mentioned earlier, raised nearly 750 million people since 1990 from under the poverty line. And this is a very significant achievement, and it has skewed the demographics of the whole world. And this kind of success is unmatched in the Western world, and unheard of before. And it's a big challenge to the system of the Western capitalist system. So I think it has shaken the Western capitalist countries to the foundation. So so they are trying to protect their ideologies, by attacking China and trying to spread misinformation against China.
I have a questions for Nixie. And for you, like, what kind of lines about China for Western media you find most ridiculous? And could you use your experience to refute them?
I think one of the most ridiculous thing is, and the most hypocrite way to say, is to free Tibet. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party freed the Tibet people. Like, not that they don't have freedom now. They were slaveries. The punishment, if your masters are not happy with them, the punishment is chopping off their hands, chopping off their legs, and the bones of those dead bodies were used as instruments and stuff like that. And you're telling me to free Tibet now? Like, how? I mean, it's just disgusting how a lot of people doesn't understand the real situation, and they don't even use Google.
What kind of policies have greatly facilitated the business and the trade between your home country and China?
In the past, trade options and business options were quite limited. But however, due to China's great achievement in building the Shanghai-Tibet Railway, the trade between our countries has been much easier, and it has flourished since. Additionally, we have signed many treaties to help facilitate business between the two countries.
A lot of people are saying, well, Chinese and Pakistan's got a really good relationship. And some Chinese people are saying that they feel at home in Pakistan because of the extreme strong friendships between the two countries. And is that true?
Relationship between Pakistan and China is a very historical relationship. And as you know, that Pakistan was the first Muslim country to recognize the People's Republic of China. Pakistan and China have also a very important moment where Pakistan played a pivotal role in the US-China détente. Because Henry Kissinger went to Beijing from Pakistan. And after that, the US recognized China as a People's Republic of China. But apart from that, Nixie, China and Pakistan support each other's core interests. Pakistan is very, very unequivocal on China's core interests, whether it's Xinjiang, whether it's Tibet, Taiwan, Hong Kong. China has been the voice of Pakistan in the UN Security Council and has supported Pakistan's core interests. And more recently, the flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative is now the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Within the different corridors of the Belt and Road Initiative, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the most highly promoted by Beijing. And it is a success case where many, many thousands of people have been employed, local people. Women have been empowered. And Pakistan's energy crisis has been resolved. Uh, Schools and clean water programs have been established under the China-Pakistan corridor. And this is the biggest investment that Pakistan has received in its history. And when I go to China, Sichuan Mian Tiao, my food to eat there is the Sichuan
if you like
spice.
Lao Gamma, I shipped that over to you, remember?
I'm very grateful. I want to say on the record that Nixie, you sent me Lao Gamma spices, and there's some of them.
Chinese New Year.
Is that delicious for Pakistan people?
It's it.
Wow.
He likes Algama, I remember that. And since he couldn't travel anymore, so what happened is in the beginning of this year, I actually sent a post over to him so he can taste Algama at home.
Yeah, and it was such a pleasure, Nixie, because that taste of Laogama and, is the taste of China. And, I always tell my family that the only place outside of Pakistan where I actually feel comfortable at home, I'm not conscious of my surroundings, no one's staring at me, I'm completely at home, is China. I think that comes from Chinese culture, which is very welcoming, I feel. And I want to mention that the 21st of May of this year is the 70 years of Pakistan-China diplomatic relations.
Really?
Yes.
We did the interview in the right moment.
Yeah, it's the 70 years of diplomatic relations, and it's a very big occasion for Pakistan.
Nirbhik, could you share some thoughts on the friendly bilateral relationship between Nepal and China? Do you have any interesting stories to share?
Nepal and China had a relationship from very ancient times also. We had a lot of cultural and social exchanges over the years. And there are many ethnic groups in Nepal that have migrated from Tibet and China, and thus bringing their culture with them to Nepal. There's even marriage across the borders. It used to be quite common, and it's still quite common. One of the famous in the history is there was a marriage between the king of Tibet, Songtsen Gampo, and Princess of Nepal, Brikuti. In modern times, our diplomatic relationships was established in 1955, and shortly after that, in 1960, Sino-Nepalese Treaty of Peace and Friendship was signed, which marked the start of friendship between Nepal and China. And the relationship between Nepal and China has always been peaceful, friendly, and very cordial ever since. We've never had any major disputes or conflicts. Also, Nepal is very firmly committed to China's One China policy and Chinese unity. And Nepal has committed to not allow its soil to be used for any unfriendly activities against China. This has been demonstrated by Nepalese government multiple times in the past.
What is your plan for the near future in terms of strengthening mutual ties between your home country and China?
There's a big barrier between our societies because of our language. We must invest in those facilities which allow us to interact more easily. Maybe have some Chinese schools operating here, maybe some Nepalese culture being taught in Chinese universities, or things like that we can do to bring our people together.
And I think that the most important thing for Pakistan in regard to China is to learn about e-commerce from China, because the way Tencent has revolutionized online payments, grocery shopping, from buying a car to buying grocery, Alibaba, is something that Pakistani youth need to inculcate in their society and ecosystem. And artificial intelligence and big data, these are areas where I think that the youth of Pakistan need to learn, study, and engage with China.